Hey everyone, it's so great to be with you today. Hey Jamie.
Hi, thanks for having us. Great to be with you all.
Well, this is such a treat for us. Jamie and I most recently worked together at Project Drawdown, and we are going to share with you all sorts of solutions. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the problems, on what's causing climate change. Y'all can get that most anywhere. We are going to specifically focus on the solutions and what you can do within the game industry to really move those solutions to scale. So with that, Jamie, let's get started. We're going to share some slides with
Let's dive
everybody.
in.
All right. So I'm going to start with a little bit of science for all of us today. And what we're going to talk about is what's going on in the atmosphere. So I want you to play make believe with me for a moment and imagine that this rectangle you're seeing on the screen is all of the heat trapping gases that are put into the atmosphere by humans year over year. Well, what you might ask is, where are they coming from? And that would be a great question. They are coming from these six main sources. So they're coming from places like electricity production, food, agriculture, and land use, industry, transportation, buildings, and other energy related sources. Some of those sources might be a surprise to you. Others, like energy or electricity, are likely not surprises to you. So this is what's going on, right? Where we have all of these heat trapping gases going into our atmosphere, but thankfully, the story doesn't end here. Here's where the story continues with nature and nature's sinks. Thank you to the ocean. Thank you to the land, the process of photosynthesis for absorbing the carbon dioxide from our atmosphere into nature. Now, for those of you who are doing a little bit of math, you might recognize that that equation is not quite balanced. And what we're ending up with on our planet is still about 60% of those heat trapping gases that are released by those sources, by human created sources. Those are left in our atmosphere. And that, everybody, is creating that thick blanket around our planet that is resulting in all of the outcomes and the devastation we're seeing with climate change. So what does that mean for us? Well, when Jamie is at Project Drawdown, I'm now at SEI, Building Sustainability Leaders, and we both think an awful lot about how we can flip those sources on their heads and actually make those the solutions. So what I'm going to show you is the drawdown framework for climate solutions. And you might notice that this top row is actually the same information that I showed you in the sources. So the sources of those heat trapping gases can also be solutions. So we want to be thinking about solutions related to the electricity sector, related to food, agriculture, and land use, to transportation, buildings, and industry. And there are so many solutions. We also want to be looking for solutions related to supporting and enhancing what nature already does so well in our world. And finally, we want to do the last S. We want to reduce sources, support sinks, and improve society. Make sure that we are making fundamental changes to improve equity-based solutions like meeting needs for reproductive health care and universal education. So this, everybody, is the drawdown framework for climate solutions. And these solutions, when taken together as a mosaic, are solutions that we need to simultaneously, individually, and with determination all across the globe. So we are so grateful for all of you today, thinking about how the games industry can really start to lean into these solutions to improve life for people and the planet moving forward and forward. So what you might wonder is, well, what can I do? Where am I in this space? And you might be wondering, well, what are Elizabeth and Jamie going to talk about in terms of how you can plug in? And Jamie, I'm going to do a plug for you, even though you'll probably be a little embarrassed, has a great TED Talk called Every Job is a Climate Job Now. And truly, every job is a climate job. And so we want you all to think about ways that you can incorporate climate solutions in the roles that you play. Here's what I've done. In graduate school, I was lucky enough to study educational psychology and environmental science, where I started designing games because games for me were really a way of making the invisible visible, taking things that we can't see, like carbon pollution, and making it a variable that you can manipulate. So making the invisible visible helped me allow people to do things that are too complex, too risky, too expensive in the real world. We all know that games are low stakes playgrounds where we can experiment. Through design, we can learn about systems. Through experimentation, we can solve problems right in front of us. And we have the opportunity through games to explore trade offs and interdependencies within systems. So I loved the possibility of reaching huge audiences through games. And so during graduate school, I worked for the Walt Disney Company, where I had an incredible opportunity to work with artists, game designers, educators, and fantastically creative Imagineers. And after graduate school, I said, you know what? I want to still work with really creative, incredible teams. And so I decided to move to the San Francisco Bay Area and work for Leapfrog, where I designed developmentally appropriate games, books, and DVDs for youth. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, that means that we can all find ways to make our jobs climate jobs. And one way for us to ground our thinking is actually through the Drawdown Climate Solutions Framework. So, one question I'd like to ask you is how can you make these climate solutions come to life in your games? Right? These are just words on a page until we actually start to put them in the world and start to see those heat trapping gases decreasing in our atmosphere and oceans. So, how can you in the gaming industry provide players with a story where people are part of the hero's journey, right? Let's make us all heroes. We want to create a win state for climate. So I'm going to share with you some of the solutions that we talk about at Project Drawdown. All of this information is available on drawdown.org if you want to learn more. You'll see things like this. And what this is we lovingly called it the bubble diagram. This is a deep dive into one of the sectors that I mentioned. This is the land sinks sector. And you'll see that nature does a lot of work for us already. And we can support nature's work by shifting agricultural practices, by protecting and restoring ecosystems, by using degraded land, and by addressing food waste and diets. Now, within each of those clusters, right, those are clusters of solutions, you're going to see a whole bunch of individual solutions that are part of this mosaic of climate solutions that we have in hand now today for us to stop increasing all of those heat trapping gases in our atmosphere. So what does that mean for you? Well, when we look at these solutions, how might you take some of those solutions and integrate them into the work that you are already doing in terms of telling immersive stories, right? You are all storytellers and you tell stories in incredibly immersive ways. You create a hero's journey, and it's a journey not unlike the journey that Will Harris is on the edge of Bluffton, Georgia, which is one of the poorest counties in the United States. And Will and his family have turned white oak pastures into one of the largest pasture raised livestock operations in the entire country. They're calling it a grand experiment in the deindustrialization of agriculture. Now, so White Oak Pastures supports 110 employees, but those employees don't feed animals. That sounds weird, right? Because it's a livestock operation. They feed the microbes in the soil. And the microbes feed the soil, and the soil feeds the plants, and the plants feed the animals, and they breed and they grow, and the animals are turned into meat and they are sold for money, and that keeps the whole system going. So they know that the health of the soil is connected to the health of the community, and the healthy soil sequesters more carbon, acting as an important land-based sink, which is a critical climate solution. So we can tell immersive stories. We can also think about ways that we want to level up. In games, you meet players where they're at and you help them level up. Now, most of us have heard about some of these climate solutions like solar panels and wind turbines, and those messages might get a little bit stale and lose their luster after a while. So, great news, everybody. We have so many other solutions that need to be put into place as quickly, safely, and equitably as possible. Solutions like, check this out, ocean power. Another solution like dynamic glass, and one of my favorite solutions from one of my favorite places on the planet, the California Academy of Sciences, green and cool roofs. So how can we level up and bring people new information that they might not have thought of before? we also want to make sure that we are having opportunities to show players what's possible. Let's give people opportunities to try on different futures, right? And we can do that in lots of ways. One way is just showing alternative modes of transportation in your games, right? How about designing environments that have really walkable cities? Help us see what's possible so that we can create it together. And we know that games do such a great job of helping us experiment with systems. That's not what education systems around the world do a great job at, but games can totally win in that space. They're amazing at teaching about systems thinking. They're good at getting those fundamental ideas into your head and helping players really discover how systems function, how they can manipulate the system and make it work to reach a win state. And so many systems on our planet, especially systems like food, agriculture, and land use, are really complex. And people want opportunities to explore those interconnections within the system. So, are there ways to incorporate concepts like protecting ecosystems or reducing waste through gameplay so that players can start to see how their actions can scale up and have positive impacts on the larger system? And the last thing I want to talk about in terms of what we can do in this space is be a change agent for good, right? In games, one of the most powerful things we do is we try on roles. We take on different roles and we can decide to be a change agent for good. Through your storytelling and design, you can give players the power to really change the course of the world, and you can make us the hero. So, how might we design games where solving problems in a game environment inspires players to solve problems in the real world with more confidence? And we know that there are so many solutions, even solutions in the building sector that have lots of low hanging fruit, like this solution, improved clean cook stoves, which is a powerful action. That's a climate solution, it's a human health solution, and it's a solution that improves society. So, being a change agent for good doesn't mean that we need to wait around for these fancy technological solutions. As y'all can see, an improved clean cook stove is not, the fanciest, latest iPhone 13. However, it is a critical solution. And I want us to remember that we have all the solutions in hand today for us to stop and reverse what we've already done in terms of climate impacts on this planet. What we need is more people to put those solutions into place in our communities. And as we think about what we can do, we know that if we do all of these things, right? If the first S is reduce the sources from those heat trapping gases, if we support the sinks on land and in the ocean, and if we improve society, especially through health and education, we can combat climate change. And I invite all of you today to think about how you might work in that space, and remembering that implementing climate solutions directly is only one pathway for us to move into the space of reversing the damage that we've done. And Jamie, I'd love to pass it over to you for you to talk to us more about how every job can be a climate job.
Yes, thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's so great to be here with all of you. I am going to just make sure my clicker is working. Let's see. Awesome. So now let's talk about how climate solutions scale in the world. Elizabeth gave us this incredible tour of the climate solutions that we already have in hand today to address climate change. But as we know, climate solutions do not scale themselves. So implementing climate solutions directly is one pathway. So we need people building and installing solar panels and reducing food waste as individuals, but we also need to tap bigger leverage points to help bring climate solutions into the world at scale. So how do we do that? That's one thing that my team at Project Drawdown seeks to address. So just making sure we're advancing here. I think we're seeing the accelerator slide. Elizabeth, is the accelerator slide up? I can't quite see it. Yes. Okay, there we go. So this is what we call accelerators. So our climate solutions accelerators create the conditions in the world for climate solutions to move forward with greater speed and wider scope. These are things like shaping culture, that this is storytelling, the arts, things that you all do in designing games. How do we shape and build culture and provide a sense of what's possible? Building power. So in the past, too much power has been deployed against climate action or to slow climate action, and too little has been assembled to advance climate solutions. So we also need to set goals. What are we aiming for and why? Goals are really important to govern our shared direction and build a sense of purpose. So one goal, one type of goal that we look at within the corporate sector, within businesses, is a net zero by some decades in the future kind of target, which we think we need to accelerate and really look beyond sort of narrow goals. Altering rules and policy. How do we, shape the constraints and the parameters of our society? Changing policy to allow climate solutions to scale more quickly. We need to shift capital away from the extractive industries that are exacerbating and creating the problem, and toward investment in climate solutions. Changing behavior. So this is both individual behavior change as well as the aggregated behavior change of large groups of individuals, which can actually help change systems. And then lastly, improving technology. So we, as Elizabeth said, we have the solutions in hand, but technology can help these solutions scale faster, become more efficient, and explore new solutions that we haven't even discovered yet. So we need all of these climate solutions and all of these accelerators. And that's one thing that I love about Project Drawdown's work, is that we take an all of the above approach. We need every solution, every solver, every accelerator to bring climate solutions into the world. So we need electric vehicles, yes. We need investment, yes. We need policy change, yes. Activism, yes. We need everything, and everyone has a role to play in helping bring that about. And that's, again, what I work on. My team at Drawdown Labs, we work with large corporations, smaller businesses, investors, and philanthropy to really look at how we can use those big systems and sources of influence to scale climate solutions in the world. One of our key pieces of work right now that are relevant for those of you who work inside businesses or larger corporations is to look at what are all of the ways that businesses influence climate for better or worse. And this goes well beyond simply looking at a company's emissions. So companies have a lot of other ways of influencing the climate. And some of these are listed here. And again, we need companies to be fully aligned in their pursuit of climate action, not just in one area. A few weeks ago, we published a guide called Climate Solutions at Work that may be useful for some of you as you look at, how you can integrate more climate action into your current role. And this looks at all of these areas, both within corporations or other places of work where you can, bring climate action into the marketing function, or designers, or, coders. Everyone has a role to play, and we're really looking at, how different job functions can bring more of that into their role. So I'm going to pass it back to Elizabeth now to close us out.
Thanks so much, Jamie, and highly recommend checking out Climate Solutions at Work and Jamie's TED Talk, how every job is a climate job now. And as we think through what we can do, there's a couple resources we'd love to share with you. We also have Climate Solutions 101, which is a great video series focused on the science behind climate solutions. And so as we talked about today, there's this whole mosaic of solutions. And our question to you is, what's that next step on your climate solutions journey? We're so grateful that you're here with us today at the Green Game Summit, but what are you going to do next, right? And how might you, in this space, lead the change, because as Jamie said, we need all of the solvers. We need everyone to step up and step into this space where we are putting climate solutions into action as quickly, safely, and equitably as possible. We know that change is still possible. We hear lots and lots of negative things every day about the state of the planet, yet we are lucky enough to be the people alive at this moment in history. Let's work together to write the next chapter for life on Earth, one where people and the planet can thrive together. Thanks so much, everyone.